Hi everyone, in this video we're going to make a summary of chapter 5, which is Elasticity and its application. This is a book of Gregory Mankiw, Principles of Economics. So elasticity is a measure of how much buyers and sellers respond to changes in market conditions. Allows us to analyze supply and demand with greater precision. So the first concept that we are going to review is about elasticity of demand, which measures how much demand responds to changes in its determinants. The price elasticity of demand and its determinants. So it measures how much the quantity demanded responds to a change in prices. When we have something that we classify as elastic, it means that the quantity demanded responds substantially to changes in the price. So think about a little change in price, a big change in quantities. This is elastic. Inelastic, quantity demanded responds only slightly to changes in the price. It means there are changes in the price, but just a little portion of changes in the demand. So, for example, if we make an example of goods which are like necessities versus luxuries. So, from one side we have necessities, they are inelastic. Maybe there is a change in the water, but maybe you still consume almost the same because it's something necessary. So this is an inelastic good. What about luxuries? Luxuries, they are more elastic. So it means when the price changes, you avoid consuming them. Okay? So for this reason, they are not necessary, so you just can avoid them. There is another characteristic where availability of close substitute is elastic. So for example, if you have several goods that provide you the same satisfaction of the same cover the necessity you have, it is elastic. So suppose that we have Pepsi and Coca-Cola and they are the same. Okay, so maybe the price of Pepsi goes up, you just consume Coca-Cola. This is a good elastic. But on the other side, eggs, for example, there is no close substitute. Imagine that there is nothing else similar to eggs. So in this case, it would be more inelastic. Okay, so another characteristic about the price elasticity of demand is the definition of the market. When we go narrow, it's going to be more elastic. So for example, if we are talking about an ice cream and we are talking just one flavor, we can say that it's completely elastic because we just change from another flavor that we can like as well. On the other side, we think like more like let's see, like bigger market. So for example, food market, you don't have another substitute of food. Is the unique thing that you need food. Okay, so when we go to bigger markets, they are usually more inelastic. Okay, so there is another characteristic of the price elasticity of demand, which is the time horizon. So it tends to be more elastic with the time. For example, tomorrow the price of the the bus is going to increase in 50%. You don't have other option, so you're going to take it. But maybe you realize that it's so expensive, so you buy a bike. So if you go to the more time, it would be like more elastic, this good that change the price because you will find another way to solve it. So how we compute the price elasticity of demand? So is computed with the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price. So it would be the equation. The price elasticity of demand is defined by this equation. So imagine that there is an increase in 10% on ice cream price and there is a decrease of 20% consumption. So because it's more expensive, people consume less ice cream. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand is 20%, which is the change in the quantity, over 10%, which is the change in the price. So we have as an answer 2. So if we see here, we see like the quantities, they change much more. They change much more than the price. So in this case, we can classify it like an elastic good. Okay. So in this case, the change in the quantity demand is proportionally twice as large as the change in price. So another important characteristic is that we are just going to take into account positive values. Okay, is what we call absolute values, because we just going to center in the value which is given. It doesn't matter if we go to -1. So if you see here now, the midpoint method is a better way to calculate percentage changes and elasticities. Why? Because there is a problem with the previous method. Imagine that we are going to the point A to B, but it's not the same that's going from B to A. What does it mean? Imagine that we are in a point A. With the price of 4, we demand a quantity of 120 goods. But there is an increase in the price, so it means point B, which the price is 6. So the quantity is going to decrease to 8. So we are going to start analyzing from point A to B. So the change of the price, there is the final value minus initial value over initial value. So which is the final value? It's going to be 6 because it's an increase. And minus 4 over 4 is 50%. What is the change in quantity? The final value is going to be 80 minus 120 over 120. This is 33.33%. So the price elasticity of demand is the change of quantities on the numerator, which is 33 over 50. So it gives us 0.66. So what does it mean? This is inelastic, less than 1. Okay. Now we are going to see from B to A. So the change in the price is the same, but now we are going from B to A, so the final value is 4. So 4 minus 6 over 6 is this value. Now the change in quantity final value is 120. This is the initial value, and this is 50%. So the price elasticity of demand is 50% over 33%. So it gives us 1.5. Remember, when it's larger than 1, this is elastic. Okay, so this may confusion. So for this reason, we use the midpoint method. What is the advantage of the midpoint method? Because it computes a percentage change by dividing the change by the midpoint of the initial and the final levels. So it doesn't matter if we go from A to B or from B to A, because instead of dividing by the initial value, we are dividing by the midpoint, which is the sum of 2 divided by 2. So for example, in the previous point from 6 to 4 or 4 to 6, in this case it is going to be always divided by 5. So we have here 6 minus 4 over 5, which is 40%, and 4 minus 6 over 5. We avoid the negative, we just focus on positive numbers, so we have 40% change, okay, which is what really matters, the change. So in this case, we see here how the midpoint avoid this problem. So the midpoint method gives the same answer regardless of the direction of change. In our example, the midpoint of the is going to be in price 5. It's going to be 6 plus 4 divided 2, and quantity is going to be 80 plus 120 divided 2 is going to be 100. So here in quantity is going to be 120 minus 80 over 100. So it's going to be 40%. So as the answer is going to be the price elasticity of demand is the change, the percentage change of quantity over the price, and we have 40 over 40, which is 1. It means unit elasticity. Okay, great. Now we are going to press the question. Have a look. Okay, so here we have the equation. So see here, which is divided by the midpoint, which is the sum of both. And we are not going to concentrate in the values, which is negative, positive. We are just concentrating positive values. Okay, so now we are going to revise, we're going to review different cases of price elasticity demand. So here we have the first case. If you realize here, this is a demand curve which is completely vertical. What does it mean? Analyze a little bit about it here. Imagine we have here the price of 4. This is the demand, and we're going to, this is the price, and we're going to demand 100. And imagine there is an increase in the price from 4 to 5. So in this case, we are still, in spite of the change of the price, we still consume 100. So what does it mean? This is elasticity equal to 0. So this is perfectly inelastic. Why? Because here, remember, this is the change in quantities, and here the change of quantities is 0. So it makes automatically the equation equal to 0. So this is a good that, for example, even the price is higher, you are going to consume it. Imagine a concert that you really want, and the price is, they put even higher, but still you're going to consume it. So this is inelastic demand, perfectly inelastic. It doesn't matter the price, you will consume the same. Okay. Now we're going to the second case. Here we have a price of 4 and quantities of 100, but there is an increase of price from 4 to 5, and the quantities are reduced from 100 to 90. So here we have the change, okay, which is going to be 100 minus 90. Okay, it doesn't matter if we have 90 minus 100. Remember, we're going just to focus in absolute values. And here is going to be 4 minus 5. Okay, in this case, 4 minus 5. So here we're using the midpoint. If you see here, the value is going to be less than 1. So this is inelastic. When there is less than 1, is inelastic. Why? Because even the quantity changes, it changes in less proportion than the change in the price. Okay, now we go to the third case. We have 100. There is an increase of from 4 to 5, but there is a decrease to 80. So in this case, here it's going to be 100 minus 80. As I said before, doesn't matter. It could be 80 minus 100 and 5 minus 4. Okay, so in this case, it is 1. So it is the elasticity is 1. So it means unit elastic. What does it mean? The change in the quantities is exactly the same as the change in the price percentually. Here we have the last two cases. So here again we have 4. It was demanded, quantity demanded 100, and it was demanded 50 after the change. So if you realize here, I have 100 minus 50 and 4 minus 5. It would be 50 minus 100 and 5 minus 4. it will be exactly the same because this is the midpoint and we are just focused in the absolute values. So the value is 3, so it's larger than 1. So this is an elastic. What does it mean? The change in the quantities is larger than the percent change in the price. Now we have the other case which is extreme. This is a demand which is completely perfectly elastic. So here we have above this point, if the price is higher, the quantity demanded is 0. It's just like a slight change in the price. I'm not going to consume anything. But if the price is less than 4, the demand will be infinite. Okay, I will consume infinite. This is the other extreme case. So here we're going to talk a little bit about the total revenue and the price elasticity. Why there is a relationship between the total revenue and the price elasticity of demand. So the total revenue is the amount paid by buyers and received by sellers of the good, which is the price times the quantities. Okay, you sell 5 let's see, calculators the time of the price of $10, so the total revenue is going to be $5 times 10 calculators, which is going to be $50. Okay, so here we have the example. Here imagine there is a normal curve, demand curve, and we have the price of 5. We have a demand of 100, so the revenue is going to be this area. This rectangle is going to be the area. Why? Because it's going to be the quantities times the price. So this is the revenue. Now we're going to start talking about what happens when the demand is inelastic. So remember, when it's inelastic, it's like an eye. You see here is kind of an eye. Okay, so you cannot lose. It's kind of an eye, the curve. So this is inelastic. So imagine we have here at the price of 1, we have the revenue of 100, which is 100 times 1. Imagine that there is an increase in the price, and now instead of 100, I will sell 80, but at the price of 3. So see here that even I increase the price, I increase my total revenue. So what's that? This is the characteristic of the inelastic curves. When I increase the price, I receive more money. Okay, so it's better increasing the price for inelastic curves. Now we go to other case, which is elastic. So when we talk about elastic, it's kind of more like flatter. So here is the initial case. When we have price of 4, we sell 50 quantity. So it's going to be the total revenue 200. And the other side, here in the same curve, we go and we increase the price from 4 to 5. So in this case, going to be the quantities demanded, they are going to be 20. So the total revenue is 5 times 20, which is $100. If you see here, different from the inelastic curve, when I increase the price, I have a less total revenue. So here is so important. Where the curve is inelastic, increase in price, increase revenue. But decrease in price, decrease revenue. This is like a positive relationship. In the other side, we have the elastic. So an increase in price, like in this case, there is a decrease in revenue. And decreasing the price, there is an increased revenue. So now we're going to see total revenue and price elasticity of demand. Okay, we are going to see in one really nice graph where in different points the same curve, it has different elasticities. So suppose that at the price of 5 you demand 0, at the price of 6 you demand 2, at the price of 5 you demand 4, at the price of 4 you demand 6, at the price of 3 you demand 8, and at the price of 2 you demand 10. And finally, at the pen at the price of 1, you will have 12. At the last one, now is the last one, 14, you will demand at price 0. So this is the demand curve. So now here is elasticity smaller than 1. So it means it is a part where the curve is inelastic over this part. And over this part, the elasticity is larger than 1. So in this part is elastic. So what does it mean? So in this part, I can better decrease prices because I will have more. But in these cases, I will have more. It's better to increase prices for having more revenue. So at the end, I'm going to be like in the middle point because it's going to be the point where I receive more total revenue. So how we can see that better? So here is the table which summary all the information. Here we have the price, okay? So the price is from 7 to 0. Here we have the quantities. So we have the quantities that are demanded, okay? So at the price of 7 we have 0, at the price of 3 we have 8, at the price of 2 we have 10, so on and so forth. The revenue is going to be the multiplication of the price and the quantities. Is going to be 7 times 0, which is 0, 6 times 2, 12, 5 times 4, 20, so on and so forth. So here we have the revenue. Now we see that for the here the maximum revenue that the supplier is going to reach when demand reach these quantities is when the price is 4 and when the price is 3. So it's going to be over here. Okay, this is going to be the maximum revenue. Now I'm going to see the change, the percentage change of the price. I'm going to do with the midpoint. So here is the first change from 7 to 6. So it's going to be 7 minus 6 over the sum of 2, which is 7 plus 6 over 2, which is going to be 6.5. So this is going to be the percentage change of price. So I will continue here. So I will see here that with I go like down, the percentage is going up, okay? Because here from 2 to 1, the percentage is so high compared with this one. So here we have the price. We're going to do the same for quantities. We start from 2 to 0 over the midpoint, which is 2 plus 0 over 2, which is 1. So I'm going to complete all the table with the quantities. As you see, when the price goes down, the quantities, they are changing less because they are percentage, because they are higher, okay? Now I'm going to find out the elasticity. The elasticity is the division of the ratio, or the ratio of 200 over 15, so which is 13. 66.66 over 18.1818 is going to be 3.66. So here, in which part of the curve we are? We are here, where the elasticity is larger than 1. So this is the part where the elasticity is elastic, the curve, as you see here. Here we have the unit 1, because the change in the quantities and the change in the price is exactly the same. And afterward we go to the inelastic part, which is the change is smaller than 1. So I'm just like dividing quantities over price again. So here we see how the curve it has different parts when it has different elasticities. Now there is another kind of elasticities more than the price, which is for example, the income elasticity. What does the income elasticity say? It says that to measure how the quantity demanded changes as consumer incomes changes. So it's going to be measured like that. The income elasticity of demand is the percentage change in the quantity demanded over the percentage change in income. So we said before that normally we talk about normal goods. What does it mean? It means higher income raises quantity demanded positive. So if you receive more money of your salary, you will consume more. Okay, so it means that is positive. When this is bigger to zero, it means that the good is normal. What about the inferior good? They are not so common, but there are some goods where higher income lowers the quantity demanded, so it's negative. So for example, you receive more money but you don't consume more bus. Okay, maybe you go by cab to your job. So in this case a negative. So when it's smaller than zero, this is inferior goods. So take into account that before, when we were talking about elasticity, price, demand, we don't focus on the sign. But here is so important because it defines if the good is normal or instead if the good is inferior. So now we go to the other kind of elasticity. This is called the cross price elasticity of demand. It measures how the quantity demanded of one good changes as the price of another good changes. So here is defined again. Always in this case, always we have above or in the numerator we have the quantities, and in the denominator we have the price. In the previous case of the income elasticity, we have the price instead of the price we have the salary. In here we have the price again, but we are putting, or we are plugging in the same equation two goods. So in the numerator we have the percentage change in quantity demanded of good one, and in the denominator we have the percentage change in the price of good too. So imagine the case of hot dogs. So hot dogs and the Coca-Cola, for saying something. So you drink both, they are complements. So when the percentage change in the price of good two, in this case is positive, and the quantity in this case is going to be negative, so it's going to be, the sign is going to be negative, so they are complements. But on the other side we have butter and margarine, and in this case the percentage changes the price of good two increases, and the quantity of demand of good one increases as well, so it's positive. There is a positive relation, so they are substitutes. Okay, this is again important, the signs here instead of the elasticity price of demand, where we just focus in the absolute value. Okay, now after talking about the demand, we go to the supply, which actually it works basically the same. So the elasticity of demand, it measures how much the quantity supplied responds to changes in the price. So we say about that the supply is elastic when the quantity supplied responds substantially to changes in the price. It means when the quantities they change more than the proportion that the price change. Inelastic is the other side, where the quantity supplied responds only slightly to changes in the price. There is a change in price, but there's a little change in quantities. It's so hard for the supplier provide these goods. For example, a hotel. Maybe there is a change in the price, but they cannot build another rooms immediately. It takes time. It's so hard for the supplier. So supply is usually more elastic in the long run than the short run. So for example, about a hotel, they know that the price is going up, so they need to offer more rooms. So maybe they will open another building, or they fix some space that they had available and they build more, for example. So in the long run, this is more elastic. How we compute the price elasticity of supply? So it's gonna be the same. Always when we are talking about elasticity, it usually works the same. We have in the numerator we have the change in the quantities, and in the denominator we have the change in the price. Here we're going to put a little bit numbers. So there is going to be an increase in the price of milk from 2.85 to $3.15 a gallon. So it raises the amount that dairy farmers produce from 9,000 to 11,000 gallons per month. So what is the percentage change in price? It's going to be the like the subtraction of these two divided 3. Why 3? Because it's the midpoint between these two. So it's 10%. And this one, the percentage change in quantity supply is going to be this one divided 10,000, which is the midpoint. Now I divide 20 over 10, which is the change in quantities over the change in price. If you see here it's 2, so the changes in quantity they respond like larger than the change in the price. So it's elastic. So for the supplier it's kind of easy between quotation mark adjust quickly to the change to the market, to the change of prices of the market. So here as the elasticity price demand, we have the variety of supply curves. We have the first, which is basically the same as the demand. This is inelastically perfectly inelastic, so the elasticity is equal to 0. As I said before, the hotel, so they just have a fix. Or for example, tickets in the stadium, even if the price is higher, they don't have more. This is basically the supply, and that's it, because this one is going to be 0, so this is 0. Okay, elasticity is 0, perfectly inelastic. Here we have the other case where we have from 4 to 5 the price changes, and we have the change from 90 to 100. So here we have 100 changes, and we have here the changes 5 minus 4. Remember, we don't focus about designing this in the elasticity price of supply. We just focus in the absolute numbers. In this case is less than 1, so we say that is inelastic. Okay, the supply is inelastic. There is not like really good adjustment of the change of the price. Here we have to the other case when the change is proportionally the same, so the change of quantities is equal to the change in prices. So we have one which is unit elastic, and we can have here another here. Sorry, it's not demand, we are talking about supply. So here is another case where the change in the quantities is so high compared with the change percentually of the price. So we have here is 3. So in this case is elastic. It's because the elasticity is higher than 1. And here is the other extreme case where the sorry, here this is not like the quantity demand is equal to 0, because we are talking about supply. In this case, the after is going to be the opposite. So over 4, the quantity supplied is infinite. By less than 4, the supplier is going to supply 0, so it's going to be the opposite. Okay, sorry, I put the demand, but it's going to be supply here and supply here. Okay, so it's going to be the elasticity is equal to infinite, which is perfectly elastic. So okay, that's basically all. I hope it has worked. Have a great success with economics. See you in the next video. Bye bye.